So I am Mark Stauffer. I'm the Senior Manager of Global Learning and Development with Brinks, and relatively long title. Basically what that means, I deal with all of our internal clients at Brinks across the globe. So anyone that needs training or needs assistance with training, our team deals with that. So a lot of the stuff we deal with is corporate-wide training. So things like managerial training, leadership, onboarding, things like that. But I did join Brinks 2 years ago, and the reason I joined was I was working as a freelancer for them prior to that, and I actually introduced virtual reality to them. And what we were using virtual reality for was for our frontline employees. So I did a couple projects for them in the United States for frontline employees to show them how to properly service ATMs, how to deal with their trucks and what to look for in their trucks and things like that. So that's how I got started with Brinks. The way Brinks uses VR currently is, like I said, for frontline employees, how to package things, how to do ATM operations. And we also are beginning to use it a lot for managers of people. So we have a big push right now for lean methodology, and we're going and creating a lot of different courses under that realm. And we're also really experimenting now with VR for soft skills. So how a manager would communicate effectively with their employees, things like that. Now, prior to doing our production using AI-assisted methods, this is basically how it went. So we would write a script. I would meet with the SMEs, or one of my partners would meet with the SME. We would do our needs analysis, and then we would write an outline, and then finally the final script. And it's the same, I'm sure, for most of you out there. It's somewhat labor intensive. There's a lot of back and forth. Once we had the script created, we would have to do a couple different things. Typically, we would go on site and I would film the VR. So if you were just on the last presentation with Josh, it looked like the VR in that was generated VR. So in other words, it was a graphic. It wasn't actually video, but it was a still image of a graphic, and a 360 graphic. The VR that we create is all 360 video. So we actually take a camera on site, we set the camera up, 360 camera, and then we do all the recording with that. There's other things that go into VR though. There are audio files, so we either can record the actual actors saying their lines, or we might just have voiceover. And with voiceover, there's a lot that goes into that. So the picture you're seeing here is my old studio. There's a microphone hanging from the ceiling. I have all this audio equipment on my desk. And it was a lot of back and forth. So I would get the script, I would record the script, or I would have somebody record the script. We would then put it into the VR, produce the course, and then it would come back to us and someone would say, oh, you know what, we need this changed a little bit. So we'd go back into the studio, we'd re-record the audio, we'd edit the audio, and it was just a very time-consuming, labor-intensive process. We also basically did the same thing with video. So I would, go on site, shoot the video in 360, which is still going to be the case. We're not using AI, at least at the moment, to take that over yet. But there were also supplemental videos in our courses. So we might have like a picture-in-picture video of a manager saying something, and I'll show you an example of this in a little bit, where we would have to get that person to say the script. They'd either have to memorize it, or we would be holding up flashcards so that they remembered what to say as we were recording them. And typically it took, multiple takes to get them to actually say what we needed them to say and in the correct way. So that was also very labor intensive. And then once we got those videos, we'd have to edit them. If any changes came back and people said, oh, we don't want them to say it quite that way, we want them to say it a different way. Well, that posed a whole another set of issues, because let's say I was on site. I live in Pennsylvania, and let's say I had to go down to Miami to film this VR. Well, people wouldn't see the actual finished product until I was back in Pennsylvania and I put everything together. If they then came to me and said, oh, we want this guy to say this a little bit differently, either I would say, no, we can't do that, because I'd have to go back down to Miami and reshoot him, or we would do that and use up that expense. So it did become very expensive for us to do this, and very, very labor and time intensive. We'd also have to generate additional graphics. So if there was anything, within the VR project that we needed a graphic for, whether it was something in the space or we just wanted to put something on a wall somewhere, we would have to use Photoshop or other graphics tools to create that, or take pictures of things, edit those, all that kinds of things. And then for language translation, we are a global organization, and we present these projects across the globe. So they have to be translated into multiple languages. So we would then send the script to a translation company. We would wait to get that translation back, and then we would rebuild the course. So here's an example of what I was talking about, and I'll actually show you this in real time once I get into the demo. But here's an example of one of our courses. The 360 video is in the background there, and right now there was a question that was posed, and this is the incorrect or correct response to that question. So this is what I was talking about, where we would take a person that worked for Brinks, and we would film him or her, and then have to edit that video and then place that video in the 360 environment as the feedback for the question. This particular video took many, many retakes to get the answers or the feedback correct. So it probably took, and I'm going back a couple of years now, but it probably took a good hour to get just that one, small inset video, this one right here, to be filmed. And then it also had to be edited after the fact. So again, time consuming, very labor intensive. So this is what I've discovered with CenarioVR and how we can use AI to supplement it. So first of all, with the script, I still need to meet with SMEs. We still need to do the needs analysis. But we found that now with AI, and specifically ChatGPT, we can write some of the portions of those scripts. And I'll show you an example of that in a little bit. As far as recording the audio goes, I don't have to sit at my chair anymore and speak into a microphone or have someone else record audio. I can use an AI tool. We happen to use Natural Reader. And I'll give you a demonstration of that here in just a moment. And I don't know if you know anything about AI audio type voiceover recordings, but when I first came with Brinks, and actually when I was still a freelancer, they told me that they used Natural Reader. Now this is going back probably 4 or 5 years ago. And I was absolutely against using an AI voice recorder, because the voices that I remember hearing were very, very robotic. They were very stale, they just didn't sound natural. So the first projects that I did for Brinks, I did, in my studio, recording voice. And again, it took a long time to get these things produced. But now, after seeing what Natural Reader can do and some other products that are out there, the voices sound amazing. And unless you really, really listen hard, you really sometimes can't tell that it's artificial intelligence that is creating these voices. Another thing is that the more time that goes by, the better AI gets at giving us what we need. And a huge advantage of using a tool like Natural Reader is that when I need to do a translation, once I get the translation back, I simply go into Natural Reader and copy the translation into Natural Reader, and it now gives me all those audio files in French or in Spanish or in Portuguese or whatever language I need. So it's a tremendous time saver. And not only that, with the translations, but if one of our SMEs comes back and says, look, you know, everything looks great except for this one part, can you redo this one audio file? I just simply go into Natural Reader now and retype in the way they want it said, and it comes back to them perfect. So a tremendous asset to use. If you haven't used an AI audio recorder yet, try them out. Do a trial, a 30-day trial of one. There's plenty of them out there. And I think you'll find it will save you a tremendous amount of time and cost. Because if you're using people to record your audio, you know, if you're hiring talent to do that, it costs a lot of money. And these tools are, you know, much more cost effective than it is to try to hire talent to do some of this stuff. As far as video goes, so obviously the 360 video, I still have to go on site, I still have to do the recordings, I still have to edit them. But what we found is we can use other tools that are out there to supplement what is going on within our courses. So for instance, let me just jump back to this slide. Obviously, this area of the screen, the 360 video area, has to be filmed live. But this area does not. We wanted to use a manager here, but there is a tool, and there's actually a couple now, but the tool that I favor, and I will again show you a demonstration of this in a little bit, is a tool called Synthesia. And I can actually create a talking head with Synthesia and replace this person. And again, it has the same benefits that the Natural Reader has for audio, where if someone decides, you know what, I don't like the way that was said, let's change the wording, I just simply go in and retype the words, republish the video, and I have a new video that I can place within my CenarioVR. The same way with translation, I can tell it to produce the video in a different language, and I can then resave the same video 4, 5, 6 times, however many languages I need. And I never have to take a camera anywhere to record that person saying it. Not only that, if someone decides, you know what, and they're called avatars, the people in these videos, if someone decides we need a different avatar to say this, so male to female or different ethnicity, I can just go to the library of avatars that they have, change the avatar out, hit the generate button, it regenerates the video, and now I have a brand new video of them saying the same thing, but it's a totally different person. One other huge advantage of this technology, and Synthesia is what I'm talking about here, whoops, sorry, is you can actually create your own avatars. So we don't have any custom avatars at the moment, but in a few months, my manager and 2 other people from Brinks are going to Synthesia's headquarters. They are going to be recorded and then turned into avatars. So when our director of talent needs an onboarding video, let's say, we can now use her avatar, and it will be her voice also, because they also record the voice and then digitize that. I can use her avatar in Synthesia, and she can tell me what she wants it to say, and we'll create a video of her saying that. So it's really an amazing technology. And again, it's only getting better. I've been using Synthesia now for almost 2 years, and they have made leaps and bounds as far as the technology goes and what the output can produce. Beyond's another tool. Many of you probably know of it or have used it. It is a tool that also does avatars, but it does like cartoon-based avatars. And it's really cool for using it for things like, step-by-step instruction. So the nice thing about that with Scenario is that you can then take those pieces, whether it's a Synthesia video or a Beyond video, whatever it might be, and place them in Scenario, put them up on a wall, or if you have a TV in your 360 image, you can put them on a TV, or wherever you want to put them, but make them part of your 360 environment. The next thing are any additional graphics that you need. Now, this isn't an area that I'm totally versed on because I haven't played with it enough yet, but with ChatGPT, there is another section of that tool called DALL-E, and I've seen it work. I haven't, again, played with it, but it is out there, so I just wanted to let you know about it. You can basically go in and tell DALL-E what you want a graphic of and in what style you want it in, whether you want it, let's say, watercolors or photorealistic or whatever. You basically tell it the style and what you're looking for as far as a graphic goes. And DALL-E will present to you a graphic in just a few seconds. And it will give you multiple options of it. So you can say, yes, I like this graphic. No, I don't want to use this one. Change it a little bit. So you can give it all of these things. And it's just a really cool and amazing use of AI. And then finally, for language translation, I'm also just beginning to research this, but there are different what are called CAT tools out there. CAT stands for Computer Aided Translation, and it's using the power of AI to take a script and basically run the script through the AI engine and ask for a particular translation. And it does this within seconds. So I could take a script that's, say, 1,500 words, tell it to translate it into French, Spanish, Portuguese, whatever, and it will spit out those translations to me, within 10, 15 seconds at the very most. Are they always correct? No. Sometimes they have to be tweaked, but these translation tools allow you then to hire a translator who can then review the AI translation, make any corrections, and then edit those corrections and then save the file off so that you have what a better translation might be. But the thing with the language translation AI, and again, I think this is pretty much standard across the board with any AI, the more people use it, the better it gets. So in the case of language translation, as you translate certain terms, if you're using those terms over and over and over again, it's keeping a record of what terms have been translated and if any of those terms have been edited. And the next time you use that same term, it's going to use the newly edited version of the translation. So basically, these things get smarter and smarter and smarter and smarter. One thing I wanted to mention before I go on is I know a lot of people are nervous about AI, right? Am I going to lose my job over this? Am I going to, have to reduce workforce or whatever? The way I think about it is that these are simply tools that allow us to build better, faster, more efficiently. The more we use these and the more we embrace these, it's kind of like way back in the day when we were first starting to do instructional design and training, right? We went from classroom-based training to e-learning. And I'm sure people back then thought, I'm a teacher or I'm a trainer, am I going to lose my job? Well, no, you basically just go with the technology and embrace it and use it and kind of redefine your job. So what I found with using AI over the last especially with video AI and natural reader and the audio I have found that I can do my job much more efficiently, much better, because it doesn't make many mistakes. And it's so many fewer mistakes that I have to then fix, where before, human intervention, we can make a lot of mistakes. So it's just something I would say, embrace it, learn as much as you can about it. I know it's new. I mean, I'm giving a session at DevLearn in October. And when I started that session to think about what I was going to be talking about in that session, it's completely changed. It's all about AI, but what I'm going to be talking about is totally different than when I first submitted my speaking proposal, because the technology is changing so quickly. So just read what you can about it. You guys are taking the first step now because you're in this session today, and I'm sure in other sessions. So any session that you can find about AI, take it, because it is a freight train moving very, very swiftly, and we want to stay on top of that curve so that we can produce the best training possible. Okay, this is just an example of Synthesia, and I'll show you a live example in a moment. But you can see, and this isn't the greatest screen grab, I just noticed that her eyes are shut, but you'll see it when I actually show you the demo. That is one of the avatars of Synthesia. Now, this is a real person. It is a real actor who contracted with Synthesia at some point, and they filmed her wearing the hat, wearing that outfit, and speaking, but then digitized her. And now anybody who is a Synthesia customer can use her as an avatar. And again, I can change what she says. I can change her accent. I can change her language. And it's all in the matter of just pressing a couple buttons. So here's what we've discovered AI can do for us. And I've talked about these things. I won't dwell on this. I'll get into the demo. But obviously, it can assist with script creation. It can help us rapidly, and I should have highlighted that and bolded it and underlined it, but rapidly produce media, audio, video, graphics. So now, and just think about this for a second, I don't need equipment, I don't need talent, and I don't need the knowledge of media production. I don't need to know how to set up lighting for, a talking headshot. I don't need to know how to set up the microphones. I don't need to know how to produce audio and get it to sound good. I don't need to use my iPhone to film somebody. You still can use all of these things, but AI has just changed the game when it comes to producing media files for these types of things. Now this is something I haven't talked about yet. You can produce background 360 images, and this is something really cool within Scenario. It's not something I use yet. I plan on using it, and I will demonstrate how to use it. But I don't know how many of you know this, if you're Scenario users or not, but you can actually go into Scenario and tell it the type of 360 background that you want. So you can go in and say, I want an office space, or I want a baseball field, or whatever it might be, and it will go out and it will create a 360 background image for you that you can then use. We've also discovered, and I talked about, we can translate a finished course into multiple languages now very, very easily using the AI tools. All right, let's see, one more slide. So I just wanted to show you this. I am working on a course, and it's I apologize because a lot of the stuff I'm going to show you is in very early stages of development. We're just kind of experimenting with things, but the one I am experimenting with is, I had mentioned about how a manager talks to their employee. And the other day I thought, I could write this out, or I could see what ChatGPT can give me. So that's what I did. So here, this first line here is my ChatGPT request. So I went into, and if you don't know how to get into ChatGPT, there's two different ways you can do it, at least that I found. There may be more. But if you go to chatgpt.org, O-R-G, they kind of give you a trial so that you can see how it's working. And if you want to play around with it a little bit, it's limited though on how many input requests you can give it. You can also go to openai.com, and that's where you get the actual, I believe it's Google, the engine that runs ChatGPT. If it's not Google, I apologize, but it's openai.com. And there's two different versions out there of ChatGPT. There is I think it's version 3 and version 4. This was done with version 4. But basically, I went in and said, what do you want to ask me? And so I said, generate a dialogue between a manager and employee where the manager berates the employee and the employee responds in a negative way. I hit return, and probably less than 5 seconds later, this is what it came back with. And if you're reading any of that, it's not perfect, and it may not be exactly what I wanted to say, but what I found with ChatGPT is that it'll get you 80% of where you need to be. And then you just go in and tweak it and, put in what you wanted to say. Now, I actually use this, what it outputted to me, and I'm going to show you in Synthesia how I use parts of this. But I think for something, if I had to sit down and write that, it would have taken me probably at least a half hour thinking about, okay, what's John going to say to Frank and what's Frank going to say to John? If I can put, a request in, hit return, and have this spit it back to me in 10 seconds or less, that's a huge time savings. And then I just go in and like I said, tweak it. Like I would probably have to put some things in here about Brinks or whatever, but and here's a really interesting kind of side note. I needed to do a project the other day for the history of Brinks, just something very, very easy, because we wanted to include something with our onboarding when we welcome new employees into the Brinks family. So I thought, let me see what ChatGPT, I just simply put in, I don't remember what the exact request was, but it was something like, in 500 words or less, please give me the history of Brinks from the beginning until the current day, or something like that. And when I read through it and my boss read through it, we were blown away. It was like, this is pretty much spot on. There was very little in it that we needed to change. So every time I use ChatGPT, and again, I'm only scratching the surface with this, it literally blows my mind each and every time. I've seen demos where people will ask it to create an entire storyboard for a particular authoring platform, and it does it. Like it'll come back and say, okay, use this asset here. Here's what you're going to say. This is going to be an audio file, like crazy stuff. So now the requests that you make for that are they're very more complicated requests. It's not just asking it to do one thing. You actually have to give it a decent amount of information for it to do that. But again, for me to have to come up with all of that on my own, it's just incredible what this can do. So that's another thing I would suggest is find some classes, YouTube, whatever. Just find something on ChatGPT and how you actually can ask it logical requests, and you're going to see some amazing stuff out there. All right, let me switch gears here and give me just a second. I just want to open up a different scenario file and figure out how to change my screen.
You might need to just stop screen sharing and then start again.
It was on my other monitor, sorry. So I'm going to stop screen share, but then I'm going to share again because I need to switch. Let me see if I can pick the right screen. Okay, you should be seeing CenarioVR, and let me get my ugly face out of the way. All right. You guys all see that?
Yes, we can see CenarioVR.
Awesome. All right, I'm going to jump to this. I'm not going to, and this isn't going to be a tutorial in Scenario because either you've already seen it or, you know, I know Josh gave a pretty extensive demo of Scenario itself in the last session. So I'm not going to bore you with that, but I just want to show you different examples. So this was the very first scenario project that I developed for Brinks. And you can see it's 360. This was done with a 360 camera. Our tripod was right there. So typical 360 video, right? So let me play this. I'm not going to play the whole scene, but let me play it from here. And you'll see that picture-in-picture pop up. And Stephanie, if I'm not sharing audio, please let me know because I'm not exactly sure how to do that.
It is not. So what you want to do is in your
have everything.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, it was on?
Well, it just started.
Yeah, it's not real loud at the beginning. It's just one.
Okay.
Okay. Oh, sorry. Let me start this again because he just started at the very beginning and this is kind of a long scene. Let me just get here.
Does the messenger have everything he needs to accept and ship this new package?
Okay, so that audio file that you just heard there, that was something that we had to record. Now, that one we actually recorded on site. I don't even remember how we recorded that. I must have had equipment with me. But, you know, if that wasn't correct and we needed to redo that, that's the type of thing. That gentleman was down in Miami. I would have had to go back down to Miami and get his audio again or get him to record it somewhere and send it to me. So I am going to say yes to this.
Not quite. Remember, as we reviewed earlier, you need to ask the customer for ID and match the name and signature on the domestic airway bill. It is very important. The customer signatures confirms transfer of liability between Brinks and the customer. Asking for ID allows us to confirm the identity of our customer.
Actually, you mind if I see your ID? So that inset video there, again, we had to record that on site. It took him quite a few takes to get that correct. And I remember I believe we filmed it in this room and we just used an iPhone to film it, but we had stuff taped up all over the walls so that he could remember the lines that he had to say. So it took a lot of work just to get that one small section done. And there's quite a few of those throughout this entire course. So you can see that, you know, having to do that, it takes quite a while. Let me see what else I want to show you here. So that's really all I wanted to show you from that course, the way we used to do it. Now I'm going to show you a course, if I can navigate Scenario correctly. I'm going to show you a course that I'm working on now. This isn't a completed course, but there are some aspects of it that are completed. So here we are in another location. Again, it's 360 video. You can see that I have a video on the wall there. So let me go ahead and start this up. And this will run for a minute or two.
Welcome. This is virtual reality training for manual handling. The aim of this module is to provide you with a set of principles for the safe moving of loads. As part of this training, we will learn lean principles, specifically how to reduce and eliminate non-value adding activities and waste. These principles include eliminating waste by minimizing body motions, minimizing inventory by not carrying too many things that you don't need, meeting customer requirements by following the rules, and doing it right the first time by not making any easy mistakes. Upon completion of this module, learners will be able to do the following: lift, carry, put down the load correctly, and push and pull. Okay, let's get started. Select the arrow to enter the training room.
So I could have produced this a couple different ways, right? I could have had somebody in this room, like when we were actually filming the VR, saying all of those things. But again, if I used an actor on site, they would have had to memorize that whole piece. I would have also had to figure out a way to synchronize all of the things that were happening on the screen. So all my bullet points, I would have to figure out a way to sync all those up to what that actor was saying. And we didn't actually film this particular scene. We didn't film as 360 video. We just took a still 360 image of this. So in that case, I couldn't even have used this scene with an actor. I would have had to shoot it a different way. I could have also just done voiceover, right? I could have used natural reader or somebody speaking into a microphone and then put the words up against here and the whole bit. But again, I would have had the syncing issue. Like, how do I put the words up? Do I put words using scenario, just like typing in text in scenario? And then how do I get them synced properly? There's just a lot of mechanics that go into having to make that all work right. So instead, I decided, you know what, let's use Synthesia and build a video in Synthesia and then just drop the video in. So that's what I'm ending up doing with this one. And you'll notice that this is just a scenario button that I placed on top of the video at the end. So when I click on this, it's going to go to the next scene. Now, the next scene, again, is not finished, but I just wanted to show you an example of using Beyond also in this. So I have a little Beyond segment about what it means and the 7 keys to properly picking up a load.
Welcome. Today we'll be discussing the 7 principles of manual handling. Following these principles can help prevent injuries and accidents. Let's get started. Step 1, assess the tile method. This stands for task, individual, load, and environment. It helps you determine if the load is safe to handle. Step 2, stand close to the load. This reduces the strain on your...
So we don't have to go through that whole thing, but I just wanted to give you an idea that there are ways to enhance scenario with some very enticing looking graphics, videos, and so forth that really make your project come to life. And again, that video is part of the 360. So as I move around the room, it stays, with it. Now, I'm not going to keep it there because it's not really lined up right. I want to get a different shot of this room, but you get the idea. This person is actually real. So I have another scene where she actually goes through and demonstrates how to properly pick up a box. And that's done through more traditional scenario types of processes. So I actually put text on the screen when certain things are being said. I put an arrow to show her movement, things like that. But I just wanted to kind of demonstrate how the two things can be used together. All right, so now let's get into, I don't want to show you, let me show you Natural Reader first. So here's Natural Reader. And this is just a piece that I used a long time ago it wasn't even for scenario, it was for something else, but I just wanted to show you the capabilities of Natural Reader. So let me just play this real quick. So we get back to the beginning of it.
We celebrate the beginning of 2023, looking onward to the future. Gaining a competitive advantage requires innovation and out-of-the-box thinking. In this month's issue, we share some of the innovations in progress that will transform core business operations, maximize operational efficiencies, and optimize capital assets.
Now, if I didn't know it, I would think that's a real person saying that. And it just, when I kind of, my boss kept saying, use natural reader. And I kept saying, no, it sounds too robotic. But then I actually listened to it. I was like, and a light bulb went off on my head. I'm like, I can't believe how much time I'm going to save myself by using a tool like this. The cool thing is, and I've mentioned this a couple times now, let's say I don't want a male Australian voice, right? I simply go in, I'll just pick English US for now, since that's where I'm at. And choose area. I have no idea what she sounds like, but we'll find out. And now, if I replay it,
We celebrate the beginning of 2023, looking onward to the future. Gaining a competitive advantage requires innovation and out-of-the-box thinking. In this month's
so you can see how easy it is to generate multiple audio files with different voices, different accents, different languages. So if I just change this, now I don't believe Natural Reader yet has a translation engine built in, but that's another thing I wanted to mention. A lot of these tools are figuring out how to put AI into their tool. So at some point, I'm pretty confident that there will be a drop down somewhere on here that says choose your language. And you type it in one language, you pick a different language, it's going to translate it. Then you're going to be able to pick what voice you want for it. And that's really the way all of these tools are going. Okay, so I think you get the idea with that. Let me go to Synthesia. So here is that video you just saw, and I just wanted to show you the interface. So Synthesia works very similarly to like a PowerPoint. You have multiple scenes, and in each scene, you can then customize what you want it to see. So here's that scene with the guy dropping the box. This was simply a video that was dropped in and timed to what she was saying. You can see down here that I have my script, and these little pointers are markers. So I can put markers in different places in the video, and then each one of these has a transition on it, and they're timed to whatever marker I tell it to come in on. So if I look at this one, you can see that it enters in at marker 5. And you can set all the parameters for that. So you can do that with pretty much anything that's on the scene. You can also, switch out the way the avatar is looking. I didn't want the avatar full screen here, so I simply put her in a circle. But then over here on the next scene, she's on the right-hand side, and then the final scene, she's in the middle. Now, the really cool thing is, if I don't want an English accent on her, I simply, scroll down the list of voices, and you can see there are lots of them. I can preview a voice, I can pick one. So let's say I want to go English US professional. Oh, I don't think I hit that apply to all. Try that again. Oh, wrong one. Well, you get the idea. But if I hit apply to all, it would change her voice for every avatar appearance that she's in. The cool thing is, let's say I don't want her as an avatar and I want somebody different. I go to my list of avatars. There are hundreds of them. I can say, I want to use this guy, Tony. And I want to change all of the female to Tony, and now every single one of my scenes is changed. The voices are all changed to Tony's voice, and all that I have to do is hit generate up here, and in a few minutes I will have a brand new MP4 file that's basically the same but different. So that's how quickly you can edit using something like Synthesia. let's go back into, actually, I want to show you one other Synthesia video real quick. See if I can find it here. Okay, I've been talking about employee communication, right? So my thought is to create a CenarioVR project that is a person sitting behind a desk, and the person wearing the VR headset is a manager of people. And they will be presented with two different choices that they can make on how they're going to talk to a particular employee. So let's say a prompt comes up and says, you have an employee who has missed entering in a bunch of reports. How would you respond to them? And then they would have a choice. Either I would respond by, telling them what they did wrong, or respond by encouraging them to do better, whatever those choices might be. And then based on those choices, a particular video would play. So I'm just going to, well, I'm not going to play this because you'll see it in scenario, but I just want you to notice that I have this actor here, or this avatar, I should say, with a green screen background, okay? I'm going to go into scenario, and hopefully this will work. If it doesn't, I have one already set up, kind of like the cooking shows where they have something in the oven that's completed already if it doesn't work the first time. So I am going to add a video. And I will see if I can find my video. Hopefully it pops up in the same. Yes, it did. Good. So here's my video, and that's the video you just saw in Synthesia, unhappy employee. So I'm going to bring that in. Now replace the existing. And I'm going to say done. Now you'll notice there is, I forget what this avatar's name is, but there he is. But I still have the green screen there, right? Well, first of all, I basically want it to look like he's sitting behind this desk. So I'm going to make him a lot smaller. And I'm going to try to put him here. That kind of looks okay. But the green screen's still there, right? If I preview this.
Frank, it's not like I'm doing this on purpose.
That's not going to fly, right? I don't want the green screen there. The cool thing, and I actually didn't know this until yesterday, and thank you to John Blackman for adding this feature, because what I would have typically done, I would have still created the green screen in Synthesia, but then I would have brought this video into something like Camtasia, done a chroma key in Camtasia, resaved the video, and then brought it back into scenario. It would have been kind of labor intensive because I would have had to get the background and where this video was going to be and make sure the background was behind it in Camtasia. It would have been a lot of work. And I didn't even realize, like I said, this capability was there until yesterday. So this is fabulous. There is a chroma key switch here, right? And what I can do, now I know this is true green because I set it up that way. The hex code is 00FF00 because there's nothing in here but green. But I could also just use that, okay? I'm gonna hit apply. Now it looks like he's behind a white background now, right? But he's not. He's actually will be transparent. And now I just put a human-looking character behind a desk in my CenarioVR without ever filming him. And if I play it.
Frank, it's not like I'm doing this on purpose. I've been having personal issues, and you've been piling on more work without considering the extra pressure.
Now he's going to say a bunch of responses here.
Like you care about my issues. You just care about numbers. I'm not a machine, Frank. I can only do so much.
And again, those so that was all generated by ChatGPT, all of his text. Another cool thing I didn't mention about Synthesia is that it actually ties into ChatGPT. So if you wanted a script developed, you could do it directly in Synthesia when you're creating a video. I just decided to do it in ChatGPT so I could show you what the output looked like. But so to create his text, to create his video, and to put him in the CenarioVR, it probably took me less than 10 minutes. Where before, it would have taken me, I can't tell you how long it would have taken me to film somebody, to come up with the text, the script, to do all that work. It would have been a tremendous amount of work. I'm telling you guys, this is going to be a game changer for us. So whenever you can embrace AI, please do it, because you are going to find some amazing things out there. I know we're getting a little low on time. I just want to think if there's anything else I wanted to show you, and I don't think there is. I do want to show you one other slide, just in case, and I'm sorry, this is a little bit of self-promotion. So let me change my share again. But any of you who may be attending DevLearn in the fall, I am actually giving a session there called No Camera, No Microphone, No Talent, No Problem. And I'm going to be diving deeper into some of these AI tools and how we can use them for learning and development. So I would love to meet you guys. If anybody goes to DevLearn in the fall, that would be awesome in Vegas. So please, if you happen to go to my session, please come up and say hi. All right. So Stephanie, I'm good if you want to field some questions.
Yes, we do have a few questions. First, thank you so much. That was awesome. We had, all right, so with the Synthesia AI people, can you make them do gestures, like hand gestures or anything?
Fantastic question. So Synthesia has only been around for probably a little over 2 years. I actually saw Synthesia the first time at DevLearn, and I had no idea what it was. I actually thought it was, they were just filming talking heads and showing, and then they showed me how it worked, and my mouth basically hit the floor. And I was like, I immediately called my boss and I said, we have to get this. Like, it will change our lives. And she wasn't convinced at first, but then I got the trial for Synthesia and I made her a demo video and put different languages in it and stuff. And she figured it out. And she was like, you're right, we have to get this. The reason I say that is because Synthesia has changed tremendously over the last 2 years. Their first avatars were kind of stiff, but now they're up to version 3 of their avatars, and they're soon coming out with version 4. And eventually, and I'm hoping it's this year, it may be next year though, they're going to start doing hand motions. Some of their avatars do slight hand motions now, but I've asked them for 2 things. I said, I want hand motions and I want more emotions, because especially for something like the project I want to do with how to communicate with your employees, I need somebody to look really angry and then somebody to look really happy. And they're not quite there yet, but they are getting there. So it's a very responsive company and they really listen to what you're asking for. So it will happen. They're not quite there, but it will happen in the future.
Awesome, thank you. And then you said Natural Reader doesn't do other languages, but Synthesia does. Is
Yeah,
that right?
they both do multiple languages.
Okay.
Yep.
Have you used other languages? Do you feel like the quality is the same as the English ones?
We have typically what I do with the other languages, because we have partners across the world, I will do a demo reel for them and ask them to listen to it and see if the language sounds okay. We have found though, and this is kind of an interesting point that I never really thought of, especially with video. A lot of our global customers who want videos translated, they don't want the language in their language. They only want closed captioning in their language, because they've realized that hearing the English and reading whatever language it is, they learn English a lot faster, which I thought was a really interesting point that they made. So we haven't had to actually do audio in the translations very often. But when we do, that's typically what I do. I will send it to them. They listen to it. If they like it, we'll use it. If not, then we'll just do like a closed captioning.
And can you do any sort of manual tweaks to pace and pronunciation in those natural reader or Synthesia?
Yeah, so both have a pause function. Well, they actually both have a pause function, so you can put, milliseconds in between words or seconds, however you want to do it. You can also, when you're typing into both of those, you can actually type out the phonetic spelling of words and they will say them more properly. And it's interesting too, because certain voices will say the exact same word different ways. So I found that if I switch a language, I have to listen, or not a language, but if I switch an accent, I have to listen to it again to make sure that they're saying all the words correctly, because sometimes they don't. And then you just go in and you type in the phonetic spelling and it usually works pretty well.
Okay, good to know. And then this will be the last question because we are almost at time for our next presenter. So we had one person say one of their biggest concerns with the AI generated content is that the US Copyright Office says it's not protectable under US copyright law. Is this a concern that you've had come up? How do you determine when you're okay using AI?
So, very interesting question, very timely, because I actually sent an email to our legal department asking them if when we use AI, whether it's an avatar, an audio file, a script, whatever it is, do we need to put some kind of a disclaimer on the things that we're producing to say, there may be AI used in the development of this course? And the response from our legal department was not at the moment, because there are going to be a lot of laws put in place about using AI, and those laws haven't been defined yet. So at some point, we may have to consider those things, but at the moment, we don't. Now, that's not to say that we should just go and do whatever we want with AI. I would be very careful, especially if you are trying to develop scripts that are very content specific. You're going to have to make sure that you do your due diligence and research what your script is about and make sure that the AI, when it comes back, is correct. The AI that we're using for scripting is very generic material, right? It's like, how do you make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich? There's 1,000 ways to do it. It's going to come back with a script that is relevant. But if I said, what are the properties of, I don't know, some chemical compound, I would want to make sure that I researched that and made, darn sure that what it came back with was correct. So you do have to be careful. But again, the time savings that it gives you will give you time to be careful, right? Because you would have to research whatever you're scripting, whether you're typing it yourself or whether you're using a tool to do it for you. So
Absolutely. Yeah, that's one of the big comments in the chat was it is very time saving, but you still need that human element at the end.
Yep.